Hello, I hope you all are doing very well today. Today what we're going to do is a bit of a programming on how to link your CSS and JavaScript files to your modules. The reason why we're going to do it is because obviously without any doubt you can mention all your style sheet and JavaScript and less commands within your Magento HTML file, but the only thing is that if you do so, and if you're dealing with multiple if you're dealing in a project where you have multiple style sheets and you want that style sheet to be applied across the whole module with multiple HTML files, then it can get rather messy and tricky to maintain the code if you try to do that all within inline CSS or JavaScript. So the best way to do it is that you create an XML file, which is the default XML file, which actually points to your central JavaScript and CSS file. So before we do that, I'm going to quickly give you a bit of a recap what we did last time in our episode 2. Well, it was a simple Hello World module which just came up with Hello World, which comes up with a Hello World in the middle of the page using your existing storefront theme. In our case, it's a sample data provided by Magento CE edition. So before we do that, what we're going to do, the very first thing is we're going to go inside a view folder, inside the front end folder, and then layout folder, and then here we're going to create a new file which will be the default.xml. So the reason why we do default.xml is because we want our CSS and JavaScript file to be applied to all the HTML files which are inside templates files here, rather than just one file. And the reason we do it is because obviously if you have a big project where you have a multiple inside one module, you have a multiple UI files, you can just use that default.xml file to apply all that to use that to apply all the CSS and JavaScript to all your UI files. But if you like, you can also create a module specific file or a controller specific file, that in our case which is this one, and apply that code which I'm gonna type in default.xml to that specific module. So you have both the option: either you go globally apply your theme to all the HTML files, or you can apply to a specific controller file. So I'm going to open this default.xml in my Sublime Text. As you already know, I'm actually a big fan of it. Oops, wrong file. Default.xml. So the very first thing obviously, since it's an XML file, so we're going to specify it's an XML file with the XML version 1.0 and then open it. And obviously it is a file which will be relevant to our whole HTML page. So we're going to have a page tag, and we're going to close it for now. So that's done. And then inside page tag we're going to have a head tag, and then close the head tag. And then inside the head tag we're going to have two tags, which I'm pretty sure without any doubt you guys can guess. One will be for CSS and one will be JavaScript. For JavaScript, obviously we're going to have a link tag with src, which is going to be where our location of a JavaScript file in the Magento module. I'm going to quickly close that. And then another one will be CSS tag with src pointing to our JavaScript, pointing to our style sheet location. Right, so we got that bit sorted. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to type in, the best way to do it is, rather than typing the absolute link, you should always use a relative link which starts with first your vendor name, which in this case my name, underscore your module name, which is a hello, and then use the special operator to point out that this is the module and this is where you pick up the file. So in my case, I'm going to name my folder as JS, and my JavaScript file will be default.js. And exactly the same naming convention we're going to use for our CSS file. Hello, my folder will be CSS and it will be default.css. I'll show you where you have to make JS and CSS folder, and all of it will make sense in about the next 40 to 50 seconds. Right, so we got our XML file all sorted. I'm just going to quickly mention body tag and close it without any data. The one thing we are obviously missing at the moment is some attributes which is associated with the page tag. You can literally copy and paste it from my blogspot, and the link is mentioned in the description below. So I've copied that, pasted, and then that's all good to go. Right, so default XML is good to go. So basically what happens now, if we run our module, Magento will see this default.xml file, and Magento will say, aha, this is a default.xml file, which is going to be applied for all the front-end files. And there it's going to go inside the head tag, and in there it's going to see its two child nodes. One is link, which is obviously refers to a JavaScript file, and CSS, which is a style sheet. So it's going to pick up those links. Anything, whatever is mentioned inside those two files will be applied across throughout all your UI files. Right, now without any doubt what we need to do is create a JavaScript and CSS file. To do that, we stay inside the view front-end folder. Inside front-end we're going to create a new folder which will be called web. Inside web we're going to create a new folder which will be CSS, and mine will create JavaScript folder here. And inside CSS we're going to create a new file which will be called default.css. And if we go into JavaScript, in there we're going to call another file which we called default.js, because that's the file name we gave in our default.xml file. Naming convention is entirely up to you. I use default because this is how I've been using for the last 8 years, but if you want to call it main or whatever you fancy, it's entirely up to you, just as long as you make sure the naming and then the name file names are kept consistent throughout the modules. Right, now we've done that, all we're going to do is apply a bit of a theme to our template view.html. So at the moment all it does just echoes it out, but we want it to come up with some nice fancy theme. So I'm gonna put it in a div. So I'm gonna put that inside div tag and give it a class, and I'll call that class a title class, let's say. And then I'm going to end that my div tag there, and there we can apply an onClick function which will be linked to our JavaScript file, and we can call that function title function, let's say. And let's close it. So right, what we have done in our view.html file, which is our UI, we have created a div tag, and we have specified the class name and the function name. So what we're going to do, we're going to go inside web CSS, and in there we're going to specify our class name, so which was title class, just to make sure that it is certainly the title class. And in there we can specify color to be turquoise, which is one of my favorite, to 124 146, and font size to be 30 pixels, and make font width to be bold. Right, and we got that bit of fanciness sorted, and just to make it a bit more fancy, we can apply padding of 10 pixels and border left of 3 pixel solid RGB 200, just to have a bit of a light grayish border on the left side, 3 pixel width. Right, we got that sorted. Now inside JS file, I'm going to create a function which will be called title function, just to make sure that the name and that this is what my function is called, title function. And in there we're going to create an alert box, which all it's going to say is hello there. Right, now we got that all sorted, and one thing which now we need to move on to a final step, which is the last step. If I quickly take you back to the browser and refresh it, it will not work. And the reason why is because in Magento, when you upgrade your module, all the files are at the moment are inside your code app folder. So all at the moment they're all inside your app folder. But in Magento, all the files which are available to you, which are your main data files, are actually compiled and then put inside public static front end, and depending on where it is. And then that's why, so you need to run a specific command to compile your JavaScript and CSS, and Magento will go through all your files, compile it, and put it inside that module folder. And to do that, so there's a specific command you need to pass. But first of all, make sure that you're inside your Magento root folder. So we're going to type php bin Magento setup static content :deploy. Right, since all of Magento is based in a directory called engb, because it's a brush version of Magento, but if you don't specify that and if you hit enter, all your CSS and JavaScript will be compiled in a folder which is a default folder, which is ENUS, because English US, that is a default folder. And when you try to run your page, you might run into a problem, and none of your JavaScript and CSS file will be picked up, and you will get in the debugger when you open Chrome and developer tool, you will get 404 message for all of yours CSS and JavaScript. I did spend a lot of time trying to research into it, but as it turned out that it was a really schoolboy error there. And the way you can avoid it is by making sure you specify your language and your localization country code. And for example, if you're running Romanian, so it will be RO. Right, once we've done that, we're going to hit enter. Now this thing will take a bit of a time. On an average, depending on how big your CSS and JavaScript file is, it takes about a minute to 2 minutes. So we're going to leave it run there, and as you can see here, it has specified that all our Magento sample theme and all our CSS and everything will be compiled inside engb folder. So once it's done, I'll quickly show you where all the files are compiled. The main reason while it's doing it, the main reason Magento needs to compile this is because in Magento you have a specific file which is called less, which is a new version of CSS where you can specify variables and all that. So basically it's a dynamic CSS. So to do that, Magento needs to compile that and make it into static CSS. We'll come to that later on, but for now it's done. And if we go back to the browser, hopefully it should work. Might need to clear the cache. And here we go. So all I did there was a normal, that was a syntax error, and I missed that concatenation sign, and here we go, it's all done it. So if I click on it, hello there, so it has linked to a JavaScript file. And folks, that was the very easiest and the most precise way of actually linking your JavaScript and CSS files to your linking your JavaScript and CSS file to your Magento module. Right, now I'm going to quickly show you where all your files are compiled. So if you go inside public static front end Magento, and then whatever your default theme is in Luma, ENGB, and in there you will see my module, and in there you'll see CSS and JavaScript. So if I make any change back inside my code folder, those changes won't be reflected here unless the script is compiled again. So if you're doing a rapid development and if you want to quickly make changes, I would recommend making changes up here in this folder and then copying and pasting it back to your code folders, rather than waiting for this whole command to compile, which can take up to a minute or two and waste of sheer development time. That's all for now. In the very next episode, we're going to deal with on how you can link Ajax commands to your module and overcome Magento caching system. I'll speak to you next time. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.